Okay, so hello and welcome to this week's instalment of Assessment for Applied Sports Coaching. Now today we are going to be looking at being able to get you guys to be able to describe two categories of assessment using sports coaching examples, and also be able to say why assessment for learning is important within sports coaching. Now, we have done this before in lesson, but right now I want you to be thinking of how I use my shaky hand whole class assessment. So for that first learning objective, if I was to ask you right now to describe two categories, would you be able to do it? If you can, you'd be a high five. If you could maybe do one, shake your hand. If you can't do any, you'd be a fist. So we did that for the two now. Just take a moment to do that while I move on. So, in order to get started with assessment, we need to know what needs to be in place with regards to our athletes or our learners. So now these are quite straightforward and quite obvious. So coaches value and believe in athletes. So instantly we see these two words here, value and believe, and that leads us to rapport between our learner and our coach, which then links in to Maslow. Once again, we can link everything to Maslow's hierarchy of needs when he talks about having that safety and emotional levels with our learners. I can't fit it in on my page there. So just got safety and emotion. And then we look at the sharing of learning goals with our athletes and involving them. So instantly, these 2 points here are looking to make it learner-centered. So we're involving our athletes in their actual own learning. So that's going to empower them, and then that itself leads to motivation. Providing feedback that will help athletes recognise their next steps and how to take them. This sort of justifies why we're actually coaching or teaching them what we are. So being able to do this and be able to justify helps to embed and solidify learning, because it gives it so much more value. If you coach or teach someone without them seeing actually the point of it, they're not going to be very motivated to take it on board. Then we just have some good advice there, being confident that you can get every single of your athletes to improve, no matter what level they are. And so that then links into differentiation. So you have athletes at different levels, but if you can get very low ability athlete to improve to a average ability, then you've done a good job there. Okay. And providing athletes with examples, so that's talking about ground rules and perhaps examples of how other learners or athletes have learned under your coaching direction. Okay, moving on. Now there are two types of assessment. The first is we're going to talk about if. Now this, in an education sense, would be the exams or final reports that you might have done at school, your final BTEC grade, or perhaps your A-level results. And these are taken, and it says here the end of the unit. Now, some of this information has been taken from the Ministry of Education, from Wellington. So like any good coach or teacher, if you see good practice, I want you to steal it and use it. Now, I'm not advocating plagiarism of each other's work or writing down other people's work, but within coaching or teaching, if you see a good idea, I want you to use it. And that's pretty much what I've done here. So instead of having this end of a unit or semester, we're going to be looking at actual results. So it might be the results of your game. There we go, I managed to spell that right. Or it might be your placings in the recent gymnastics competition. So how did your athletes do? They're very traditional, and a lot of people, it's the one thing that people are bothered with regards to, you see it reported in the media or reported to higher agencies to justify certain things. For example, you would say, my team has scored more 3-pointers than any other team in the basketball league. So it's a very traditional way, and it's a good way of justifying or reporting to other agencies. Another example might be the Sporting Giants initiative that coached tall people to get them ready for the London 2012 Olympics. They would say, well, our system of coaching works because of the gold medals we won with people like Helen Glover and Vicky Thornley. So that example was Sporting Giants. Okay, so once again we can see it's very outcome-based, summative, outcome-based. Your assessment of learning, what is the outcome of that learning that's taken place. So moving on to the next one, which is probably going to be a lot more important, is assessment. So this is an ongoing process, and here are the key elements of it. I'm just going to let you read through those first few. And if you want to pause it right now and take your time to read through them, and I'm going to focus on some of the lower ones because I think we've already touched on certain things such as identification of learning goals, intentions and outcomes, and we've talked about rich conversations, feedback. But this once again is the active involvement of athletes and responding to learning needs. So are we meeting the athlete's needs? If so, great. What can we do? Continue to do that. Or if not, we can look to then change our teaching methods and actually reevaluate our teaching or coaching ourselves. And these key elements come from these guys here, Black and William. Okay, moving on. Formative assessment. This is the assessment. You may have heard me talk about this. Assessment for learning. And on every single lesson plan in teaching and should be coaching now, you will see a box for this assessment for learning. So this is an ongoing process, and if you just take time to read through that, just pause it, take time to read through that. And examples of this taking place within a coaching session would be observation. Perhaps you observe a participant playing a push pass in hockey, and then you can go in and give feedback in regards to that. The practical example we did was maybe bringing someone to the side in a small-sided game and asking them, okay, what could you do then maybe to create space in order for your teammates to exploit it? So we have observation, we have Q&A, you can directly ask people. I like to use directed questioning because people then know that they're going to get picked on at some point and they tend to be a bit alert. Also we have self-assessment. Now take a moment to pause this video and think about what theory of learning, I spelled assessment awfully there, we'll add in assessment there. So self-assessment would link into Kolb's learning theory. So one of your athletes would maybe complete a skill or a drill, and then you give them time to reflect on it and come up with a new plan of how to do it. The next one to look at is peer assessment. So using a peer or working in small groups, we know that that links into our man Vygotsky, and I can't even fit him in on my page. Okay, so peer assessment, working in groups, links into Vygotsky's socio-cultural learning theory, where we learn through a more knowledgeable other teaching us about what we could be doing differently. Okay, so remember, learning in groups is Vygotsky. So